Good morning, buenos dias. I'm Dr. Ramon Martinez from La Raza Historical Society. Today is Monday, October 31, 2022. I'm at the home of Mr. Carlos Cruz, who passed away in the last few years. We'll give you more details in a minute. But I got a call from Dr. Francisco Jimenez at Santa Clara University and said that a lady had called him and said her father was a lifetime reader and he had many books and she wanted to donate them to a worthy cause. So Dr. Jimenez called me because the worthy cause we know is La Raza Historical Society Library that's at San Jose History Park. I'm visiting with his daughter Isabel Cruz, who called Dr. Jimenez, and we're visiting the books. Okay, so today I'm visiting Senor Cruz's books and his daughter Isabel Cruz, and you'll meet her in a minute. But first, let's take a look at the books. I'm going real slow so you can see the titles of the books. And I'm also looking at them for the first time. So I see that Senor Cruz has very wide reading interests. Because you see Mexican books, you see books about President Barack Obama, books about religion. Here's books about Francisco Villa. Here are other books. There's a book about Vicente Fox, a recent president of Mexico. Here are books about Fidel and Raúl Castro. Here's a very, very valuable book. It's Pancho Villa by Paco Ignacio Taibo II. And Paco Ignacio is one of the primary historians of today's Mexico. And this is one of his books. And this one I'm going to touch because you can see that the book, by the size of my hand, is about 2 inches thick. It's one of the best books that you can read about Pancho Villa. Because there are many, many, many books about Pancho Villa, and some are more accurate than others. Hillary Clinton, México mutilado, México sediento, Mi vida con los santos, Mi vida con los santos. There's a book about the Banco Minero de Chihuahua called Terrazas y su siglo, Terrazas and his century. Again, it's a very detailed Mexican history. The classic Don Quixote de la Mancha by Miguel Cervantes. And again, you can see by my hand here that this is about 2 inches thick. So these are very, very good books. They're very well taken care of. I never met Senor Cruz, but I can tell you by seeing his books that he loved books. All these books are in very, very good condition, which means he took great, great care of them. Buenos días, señorita Isabel Cruz.
Buenos días.
Gracias por la invitación a venir a ver los libros de su papá, que los vas a donar a la Sociedad Histórica de la Raza.
Sí.
Y también vamos a dar varios de estos libros a escuelas aquí en la ciudad de San Jose.
Perfecto.
Isabel, tell me about your father and your mom.
Well, my father was born in Fullerton, California, September 9, 1926. When he was 6 years old, they all left that area and moved to Mexico during the time of the Depression. My mom was born in Thermal, California on May 7th, 1927. And her parents had came from Durango, Mexico. And she was the only one born in California.
Where did your father's parents come from?
They were originally born in Mexico. My
¿En cuál
understanding
parte?
in Guanajuato, the area of Guanajuato. And then they came this way.
¿Y no sabes más detalles del área? ¿El nombre del pueblito o el pueblo?
No, nomás sé que eran de la área de Guanajuato.
En Guanajuato. ¿En cuál año nació?
Mi papá,
Sí.
1926.
Okay. And so then,
He met my mom at dances
where?
at the Civic Auditorium
In San Jose?
Yeah, because when he ended up coming to the United States after he did Ejército Militar in Mexico. So then he ended up in the area of Anaheim, which is now Disneyland. That whole area was orange orchards. So he worked there for a long time with I think with his brother, and I forgot who else. And then he says that him and a cousin and them decided they wanted to come up north. So they came up here.
And did they know anybody here?
That I know of, no. No, they just decided to come up here. He ended up in Mountain View, and at that time, San Jose used to have a lot of dances, like at the Civic Auditorium, different places like that. So that's where he met my mom, at a dance. And then the weekends, because my mom lived in Madera, but they worked in the cannery here, in Sunnyvale, California growers. So they would go to the dances, and that's how she met my dad, at a dance.
And did your dad ever work at the cannery?
No.
Oh, okay.
He only did construction.
So she worked at the cannery.
She worked at the cannery.
And what did he do?
He was a laborer for Local 270, which is like heavy construction. Yeah. Not residential, but construction, buildings and things like that.
Oh, Isabel, dime algo más acerca de la vida de tus padres como matrimonio y dime la historia de tus hermanos y hermanas.
Well, mis padres se casaron en julio 7, 1956. Habían sido novios por 6 años antes que se casaron. Se casaron en Madera, porque ahí es donde estaban mis abuelos. Después vivimos en Sunnyvale, por la calle Briggs, cerca de la galería, se llamaba Chapos en un tiempo, ahí es donde trabajaba mi mamá en el verano. Hicimos una familia de 6 hermanos, 4 hermanas y 2 hermanos. Y después cuando hace como 60, un poquito más de 60 años, nos vinimos a vivir en la casa aquí en San José hasta la fecha. Todavía es nuestra casa.
Eran renteros allá en Sunnyvale,
Yes.
Mountain View.
Era parece que era un apartamento o un duplex, no me acuerdo. Exacto.
Pero vinieron a San José y compraron una casa.
Sí,
Y esta es la casa.
sí.
Y esta casa está en el área de la secundaria Andrew Hill,
Exacto.
cerca del Center Road y Capital Expressway.
Sí.
So tell me about your memories of living in this house.
No, we had fun. We had fun. I mean, we were the first family to live in this neighborhood. There was nobody else. There was no fences, no other neighbors. Because my mom worked in the cannery, my dad worked in construction, my grandparents came from Madera here to watch us, the 6 of us. But so we couldn't go very far, our house was the house where all the neighborhood kids came. My grandma would, the ice cream man would come by and she'd buy ice cream for everybody. At that time ice cream was 10 cents. But things like that, or the troca del pan dulce would come by and things. We had fun. we still have fun when we get together, laughing and looking at old pictures and just things like that. We had a very, very happy childhood, I would say.
When you say we were one of the first families, what do you mean by that?
In the neighborhood,
Families with kids or Mexican families?
families in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were the first residents to live on the
So
street.
most of the people were adults, older adults?
No, there were nobody. There were brand new houses.
Oh, there were new houses.
Houses,
Ah,
yeah.
okay.
So we were the first people to live in one of the new houses on the street before anybody else did.
So this track was built in when? What years?
I want to say, well, it was 1960? No, 1962. So that's when we moved in. So I would say the house was probably built in the 1960s, 61.
Okay. And so which schools did you go to in this area?
For kindergarten, I went to what is now called Jason Dahl Elementary, which was called Hillsdale at that time. And then from there, we were moved to Franklin McKinley on Tully. Then Los Arboles Elementary School was built. I was the first class, the third graders there. And then from there, we went to Sylvandale Middle School and then graduated from Embry Hill, all of us.
So when you grew up in this house, so was this house a house full of books? Because your father has all these books. So was he a reader when you were a child?
That I noticed, no, because of the fact being that he worked a lot. In his spare time, he would, I think as he got older, he probably ended up getting more books. But as a child, I don't remember him, like, let's say, coming home from work, sitting down and reading a book. No.
So when he was a child, did he have formal schooling?
He only went to fourth grade.
So when did you realize that your father was somebody who read a lot of books?
I would say when he got older, and more so when he retired, when he got into more reading. He always called Barnes & Noble on Stevens Creek the library. So he would say, a ver cuándo vamos a la library. Okay. He'd watch his programs on TV and then they'd announce about a book or something that interested him. He'd write it down and we'd try to go find it. Yeah. But he didn't like going to any other nor Barnes & Noble. He liked the one on Stevens Creek.
Very good.
Yeah.
By looking at his books, he was interested in everything.
Oh yeah.
What kinds of things do you remember?
He
him?
always talked about a lot of history, a lot of different things that he read, and then he'd read more, about Villa, Zapata, history, old history, Porfirio Diaz. When the Obamas came out with their books and they had them in Spanish, he wanted those. He didn't like to read in English. All his books are in Spanish. And most of the books are written by Spanish authors. Yeah.
What kinds of families and kids did you have as neighbors?
Well, we had all kinds of different diverse. I mean, because of the fact being like during the summertime, Grandma took care of us, So a lot of them, we had families, and to this day, the ones that live kitty corner from us, we still keep in contact with them. The family next door, they've lived there for many years. They weren't the first families that lived there, but they've been there for years. We don't know any different. It's like, now it's always been a very diverse, families, different cultures, different nationalities and stuff like that. We don't know any different, yeah.
Who did your mom and your dad socialize with in those years of the 60s? Who were their friends?
Well, of course, like the compadres and things like that, they were all Spanish speakers. Most of them were. My father's primary language was always Spanish. He learned more English just because of us going to school. But he enjoyed reading more in Spanish, got more in depth with that one.
And what about your mom?
My mom spoke both languages. Again, because she went to school more. She went, I think, up to the 8th grade. I think it was up to the 8th grade. So she was more used to being around more people that spoke English. You know, working in the cannery and things like that. Where construction, there again, they speak more Spanish too. Yeah. Even though he did speak English at work when he needed to, but he was so used to the Spanish being his primary language. My mom's name was Socorro Rosales.
And you said she was from
Thermal. She was born in Thermal.
out in the valley.
Out in the valley, Southern California.
And so did she have any relatives here?
Actually, in Madera.
Oh.
That's where everybody, well, my grandparents were in Madera. Her, my mom, my aunt. An uncle lived down the street, I remember that. Another uncle and aunt lived there in Madera. So they ended up settling in Madera, which is outside of Los Baños.
Did your mom and dad belong to any groups, like church groups or clubs or
No.
anything like that?
No. They just, it was family, you know, because they're busy working and doing this, doing that. You maybe got together with, somebody was having a thing, a function, a birthday, you went to the compadre's house or something like that, or just different things like that.
You said that your mother came here to work in the canneries.
Right.
When she was married and living here, did she still work in canneries,
Yes.
or did she work somewhere outside
No.
the house?
No, she worked in the cannery just during the summertime. Well, because we were out of school. So when we were in school, she was home, but then during the summertime, she would work the season of the cannery with the peaches, pears, and things that they had like that. And that's when my grandparents would come over here.
Do you remember the names of any of the canneries she worked at?
She only worked at Chaco's.
La Raza Historical Society has a collection of El Excéntrico magazine that was published in San Jose from 1949 until 1981. And you're talking about canneries made me think of the magazine. Do you remember anything about that magazine?
Yeah, I remember seeing it. Yeah. And you would see pictures of different things that went on in San Jose, if artists came to San Jose. I don't remember the photographer's name that used to take all those pictures. He used to put pictures in there. Or people walking downtown. You would see pictures of, he would take pictures of people walking downtown. I think there's a few, or one or two, that were taken at that time of my parents walking downtown.
Did any of your friends or any people you know ever appear in the magazine?
No, not friends that I know of, no.
Do you remember what was interesting to you when you read that magazine?
I didn't read it so much as to look at the pictures.
About how old were you at the time?
I would say early teens,
Okay.
yeah.
So what kinds of pictures interested you?
It was all black and white. I think that what made it look so nice. And that at that time, people really dressed up. You saw whoever was walking down the street, they were dressed up. They weren't, they just kind of gave an aura, a different aura. But I think because it was also black and white, the pictures.
You said that your dad was primarily hablaba español. Los llevaba a las fiestas patrias, 5 de mayo, 16 de septiembre, los desfiles que tenían aquí en la ciudad.
Sí, de vez en cuando, ya. También me acuerdo cuando mi grandma todavía vivía, la mamá de mi mamá, fuimos a un desfile, no me acuerdo qué era, pero tenían la viuda de Pancho Villa at the Civic Center. Y llevamos a mi grandma. Yeah. Era la suegra de mi papá, y ella quería ir al desfile. Pero de vez en cuando íbamos.
Sí.
Yeah. Todavía después de más grande, cuando todavía tenían los parades, allá downtown, nosotros íbamos, pero ya éramos más grandes. Yeah.
En esos tiempos las fiestas patrias todo el tiempo tenían concursos de reinas. ¿No te acuerdas de esa era o no conociste a tus amigas que se involucraron en a ser la reina del 5 de mayo al 16?
No, nomás íbamos, veíamos los carros pasar, todo, cosas así, pero no conocí a nadie que era parte de eso.
So your father retired at age 53, more or less in the 1980s. What did he do after he retired?
He ended up doing a little bit of side jobs, different things, helping people put tile, or he'd put tile for somebody. He ended up becoming the caretaker for an older gentleman in Menlo Park, Mr. Barnes. So he would go over there if the gentleman needed a ride to the bank, do some yard work and stuff like that. Because the older man, his son was my dad's boss. And he said, my dad needed some help and stuff like that. So he would go help the parents.
So your father went to work for someone after he retired in the 90s. What about your mother? When did she retire and what did she do when she retired?
Well, when she retired, I want to say it was probably in the late 80s, early 90s, because they closed the cannery. I think they closed the cannery. But she ended up, of course, watching her grandchildren. Yeah. Her and my dad would watch my oldest niece. She would come here, or they would go pick her up from school and stuff, and then be here until the parents would come and pick her up, or my brother would pick her up and things like that. They did that, and then 10 years down the road, the next grandchild came, and then for a while there, she did watch 2 of my nephews during the week, and so their life was taking care of the grandkids when they needed help with something.
What kinds of things did she like doing with the children?
Gardening. Yeah, they like to play in the dirt, so she had them outside and doing things, just different things like that. My mom was an avid crocheter. She loved to crochet, so she would make things, and that's what she enjoyed doing.
Tejidos.
Tejidos. Yeah.
Háblame de los tejidos de los que te acuerdas.
Oh, hay muchos. Ella hacía muchos de manteles, sobrecamas. En el cuarto había un balance que tenían tejidos, doilies, all kinds of things. Yeah.
¿Todavía tienes sus tejidos?
Unos de ellos, sí. Aquí hay uno de ellos, right behind me.
After your mother retired, you said she liked to take care of kids, she liked gardening, and she liked tejiendo. And I see that you have tejidos here on this table. Did she do these tejidos?
Yeah, the majority of them, yeah.
¿Nos puedes enseñar los tejidos?
Yeah.
Para una almohada. ¿De qué está hecho este tejido?
De hilo.
You're going to tell me.
Es de hilo. My mom didn't crochet with yarn. She only liked using tejido because it was more delicate. This is a balance for a window. It's actually double in size, but...
Yes. Qué bonito.
And she was self-taught. My mom was self-taught in crochet. Her and my aunt decided one day to see if they could learn how to do it. So that's how they ended up learning how to crochet.
Very nice.
This is, I think, a tablecloth. I will show the stained part. But
You hold that end. Hold it in the sunlight. Those must have taken lots of time.
oh yeah, yeah. She really enjoyed doing a lot of these things. Well, my mother passed away in December of 1997, and my father passed away in September of 2001.
What are the memories you have of your mother in her last few years?
Oh, she loved gardening. I mean, gardening, again, the crocheting, doing little projects, different things like that. She enjoyed life. I mean, she just would, she never got on a plane, but the last year before she passed, she ended up finally getting on a plane to Las Vegas. Yeah, we went to Las Vegas. So she enjoyed more the being home, being with us. I mean, the garden right now, it's not what it used to be, but she'd plan it out, what she was gonna plant every year with the colors and stuff like that, you know, things like that. And her and my dad would sometimes take rides to, like, let's say San Juan, go out there, or if there was a plant that she saw, because she liked to grow also irises. And there was an iris farm, I think, in Hollister. So they would take a ride to Hollister and go look to see if they could find the color. Just different things like that. They enjoyed being together, yeah. My dad, in his last few years, of course, he loved everybody to be together. Whether it be Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, birthdays, everybody got together, and we still do to this day. Enjoyed everybody getting together. He looked forward to, you know, the kids, all the grandchildren, the great-grandkids, because there's 7 grandchildren and 2 great-grandkids. So he would always love everybody getting together, and, you know, he would just sit sometimes and just watch everybody, you know, laughing and joking and just having a good old time. Que siempre estemos unidos. That was his big. Always used to say que siempre estén unidos y juntos. And we are. In his later years, he actually would read 2 books at the same time. He had a book in his room, so he'd read a little bit before he'd go to sleep. And he'd have a book in the backyard, and he'd sit in the backyard. And I remember some of the books that he has are very thick books. It would be hard for him to hold them. And he would, you know, say, oh, you know, my hands hurt from holding the books. So a friend bought him a cookbook holder, and that's what he had his books on, so he could read in the backyard. So, I mean, he loved reading. So a lot of times, you know, if his birthday was coming, Father's Day was coming, you know, sometimes my nieces or my nephew would say, one of my nephews would say, give me some ideas of books that Grandpa might like. So then I would find books that maybe he would like based on a lot of the topics he has. And so he'd buy books, you know, add to the collection, as we say. You know? Oh, he would say todos mis libros. We didn't, you know, he would always make sure that he took care of them. I mean, where he had them, he made sure he had them, that nothing could get in there. Sometimes he had it in plastic bags. We took them out of the plastic bags, but stuff like that. He had joy in his books, reading. Yeah.
How did his reading influence you?
I have one of my sisters. She's a big book reader. I think one of my nephews too. They like the reading. More English, of course, English books, but they're more readers. I read more magazines. I'll look at magazines. It has to be a book that really gets my interest to read it, but I'm not a big personal avid book reader. No.
And as you can see, Senor Cruz was very interested in Pancho Villa. He's got various titles by Pancho Villa. And these authors are people who are some of the best writers about the topic. He also had, you can see he had an interest in religion and spirituality. Here's a book that is pretty rare. Compendio Histórico Biográfico de Mexicali. And here's the escudo de Mexicali. A ver si alguien que es de Mexicali nos puede decir algo del escudo. Here are a number of books by Francisco Martín Moreno. And I'm not familiar, no sé del trabajo de este señor Francisco Martín Moreno, pero aquí están los títulos de sus libros. México acribillado, the riddle that is Mexico. And these books are all what some people call counter history, or the other side of the story kinds of things here. You know, we all know the general history that this happened and that happened. But these books look like they take a little deeper look into México. Todos sabemos las historias populares de la historia de México, que Pancho Villa y que la revolución y esto y lo otro. Pero estos libros todos son libros críticos, no criticales, críticos, que investigan la historia de México un poco más cercano. A ver si los leen un día.